even though my parents are both dead. And I can't really get in trouble for this anymore, but when I was in middle school, I used to go over to my friend's house to the basement, and there was kind of a comfortable couch and a record player. I don't know if you know what a record player is. It's like you put a record on a machine. Anyway, we used to smoke cigarettes, and they would smoke weed. I would pretend to take a puff, because if I smoked it, my heart would start to pound so fast, and I kept thinking I heard sirens all the time. Like, I would get so paranoid. And it wasn't great for me. Anyway, we used to listen to music, and one of the bands that we liked to listen to was called the J. Giles Band. And they had these great songs like First I Look at the Purse, and oh my God, there were just so many. And the lead singer was this guy, Peter Wolf. And he was kind of a black-haired guy with a black beard. And we thought he was so cool because he was married to Faye Dunaway, who was the absolutely most beautiful woman in the world, who'd been in Bonnie and Clyde and the Thomas Crown Affair. And so we thought he was just the coolest. Now, here's where the story gets a little bit funny. My older sister, her best friend was a very beautiful woman who was like half Asian. She was very tall, but she had kind of Asian beautiful features. And she always wore bright, bright, bright red lipstick. And she was friends with Peter Wolf. Now, I think they were probably lovers. That's my understanding. But anyway, the J. Giles Band was coming to Washington, D.C. for a concert. And my sister invited me to go to the concert and to maybe go backstage with her and Cathay, her friend. So, I mean, I was like, yeah, of course. I was just a kid, though. I think I was either 13 or 14 or something. And my sister was like, this won't do. You do not look as if you're old enough to even go to a concert. And so she dressed me up in some kind of outfit. And then she made me wear a raincoat. To this day, I loathe raincoats. There could be a monsoon outside and I refuse to wear a raincoat. I'd rather get soaking wet than wear like one of those drab beige raincoats. Anyway, she made me wear a raincoat, and we went to the concert. And then afterwards, we went with Peter Wolf to a bar, like a really nice bar. They were staying at a nice hotel in downtown Washington, D.C. And we went to this bar. And I don't think I drank any alcohol. I mean, they must have realized I was just so young. Anyway, so I ended up sitting next to Peter Wolf. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because I am reading Peter Wolf's absolutely wonderful autobiography right now. It's called Waiting on the Moon. And he tells stories like nobody's business. He can tell a story. It's short chapters. And he's one of these people who just is always in the right place at the right time to meet cool people. Like when he went to college, his roommate was David Lynch. He knew Bob Dylan. He sat next to Marilyn Monroe in a movie theater once, and she fell asleep with her head on his shoulder, and he fell asleep too. And he describes her perfume. He's a great storyteller. Anyway, so since I have a little Peter Wolf story, I thought I would tell it. So we were sitting next to each other, and when you're a kid, hardly anybody takes you seriously. Like everybody just sort of assumes you're an idiot or you're whatever. Anyway, he asked me about myself. He was like, what are you interested in? And I began to tell him that I loved poetry and I loved books. And I told him I loved Truman Capote. And he said to me, he really listened, took me seriously. And he said, there's this book I think you would really like. And he said, it's called The Ballad of the Sad Cafe by Carson McCullers. And I'd never heard of her. And he said, it's quite short, but I think you'd really like it. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. So that was the end of the evening. And the next day I went to the bookstore in Georgetown that I would always go to. I could walk there. It would take me about an hour from my house, but I would go there. And I bought a copy of this little book, and it's a novella. And I read it, and I absolutely loved it. It's the story of a very lonely, odd woman, and she owns a little store, and she is cross-eyed, and she doesn't really get along with anybody. And this hunchback, as he was called, comes into town and claims to be her cousin. And she takes him in, and there's a very weird relationship between the two of them. It's sort of left ambiguous whether they're lovers or not. And she's 6 feet tall, and he's this sort of dwarf. So anyway, it's a fascinating story. And it ended up being a very important book in my life. And, you know, I was a teacher for many years, and I taught it for many, many years. There's a really incredible part in the book where they talk about the idea, Carson McCullers talks about the idea that in every relationship, there is one who is the lover and one who is the beloved, and one who loves the other and the one who allows themselves to be loved. And I don't think it has to be the same in every relationship, but people tend to fall into the category of being the person who does most of the loving, and then the other one who tends to allow themselves to be loved. Anyway, that's my Peter Wolf story. I have not run into him since then, but if he has a book signing, I'm heading over there. I'm going to tell him thank you for suggesting that book. I have to say, that was probably over 50 years ago. But he's still going strong. He's 80 years old. All right, that's my story for today. Ciao.